I wanted to actually come and show you guys this. I genuinely am excited. I know people say, "Oh, I'm so excited to share with you," but no, honestly, I am really excited. Um, because let me just go straight to it. Joseph from the Bible, you know, the one with the coat of many colors, etc., etc., that we are like, oh, God gave him the dream, and then God allowed all these things to happen to him. Something I've always struggled with that story is this idea that God allowed this innocent guy to go to prison for 13 years, right? I must say that was really, really hard. And of recent, it's like the enemy's been like trying to say to me, oh, yeah, well, look what God did to Joseph. And, I was talking to God about it. Okay, more like I was like whining to God about it. And God, this morning, God said, what do you actually think happened with Joseph? And he said, go and take a look again at that story. And dear listener, dear watcher, this is what I found. Joseph was never in any prison the way you or I think it. Yes, you heard what I said. Joseph did not go to any prison the way you or I thought it. Now, let me show you what I found. I even did a presentation for you. Yes, that is how mind-blowing this was. I was telling my friend about it. Now, my friend Abby, she has been really like amazing in terms of being somebody to talk to about faith and stuff like that. And she always says to me, like, listen, every is and comma and anything in the Bible is meaningful. So don't ever read a story and think you know the story. All right, let me jump straight to it and show you what I found. I'm gonna try and do this like a share, and I hope it works for the purposes of recording this video, but bear with me if it doesn't. Right, so let's see. Uh, okay. Right. So we begin Genesis chapter 39 here, and in verse 1 it says, Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an Egyptian officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the I'm using the Amplified, so it has royal guard, but you will find that other Bibles just say the captain of the guard bought him, and says the Lord was with Joseph, and even and Joseph became successful and prosperous, and he was in the house of his master. Who's his master? The captain of the guard. Okay, we skip over here. We skip to verse 20, where it says this is after Joseph's master's wife, Potiphar's wife, she kind of looked at Joseph and was like, "You kind of fine. I want a bit of that." And she tried to seduce him. Joseph was like, "No, no, no." Then she literally tries to force him, and he goes, "No," and left her and ran off. And in the process of running, he literally left his robe that she was holding onto in her hands and ran. And Joseph's reward for this was that the woman then lied, as all narcissists and manipulators do, and accused him of what she herself was doing. So she said to her husband, this is what Joseph did. Now, this is interesting because she doesn't actually say directly to the husband first. She says to all the men servants when they came back, look what this Hebrew boy did. And then when the husband came back, she repeated the story. Now, why was that? Because in a household with so many servants, you would have thought that the other servants would have run to go and tell the master, look what's happened, come back quickly. But they didn't. Anyway, she repeats this story. So it says in verse 20, so Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined. So he was there in the prison. All right. And then we skip to chapter 40, where at this point, Pharaoh's baker and butler had done something to upset Pharaoh, and then he puts them in prison whilst he thinks. This is important because this tells you what that royal prison was. The royal prison was not prison like you or I thought, and that's not the mind-blowing bit. The royal prison is not prison like you or I thought. It's where they put people like, whilst they were trying to decide, are they innocent? Have they tried to kill Pharaoh? Or sometimes even like when people send envoys into the country and Pharaoh's not sure whether you're a spy or not, he'll just put you there whilst he goes and makes inquiries. And then when he's sure that you're not a spy, he'll bring you out. So it's like a bit of a holding place, if that makes sense. So that's where they put these two people, and you will see later on in the story, one of them gets released and goes back to his job, fine as usual. The other one gets killed. So it's not a place of harsh conditions. It's a place that's actually meant to be like, if you imagine where you would put a very important political prisoner, it's like that kind of place, but it's not a prison. Because in chapter 40, we see that it says Pharaoh, verse 2 says, Pharaoh was extremely angry with two of his officials, the chief of the cupbearers and the chief of the bakers. And then verse 3 says he put them in confinement in the house of the captain of the guard. Who's the captain of the guard again? Potiphar. All right. Okay. So we're going on there. And then it says, top right hand corner. Um, oh, sorry, just a second. Let me go back. And it says the captain. I'm sorry, I've accidentally blocked it with my view. Let me see if I can move that. Yeah, it says the captain of the guard. Who? Potiphar. Wait, what? Put Joseph in charge of them. These two very important prisoners he has. He put Joseph in charge of them and says Joseph continued to serve them. No, Joseph served them and they continued to be in custody for some time. Yeah. And then it says Joseph asked Pharaoh's officials who were in confinement with him in where? In his master's house. Not in prison. In his master's house. Okay, why do you look so downhearted? And they explain blah 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 blah. And then he explains their dream to them, and then it goes on. And I believe this is now chapter 41, I've cut it off, verse 12, that after one of them is released, that's the cupbearer, and Pharaoh then has this dream that nobody can explain to him. This cupbearer goes, well, actually, I remember now, there was a young man who was in with us. You remember that time that you locked us up that we don't talk about? There was a young man who was in with us. Look how he describes Joseph. A Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard. Wait, was he a prisoner or was he a servant to the captain of the guard? And then he says, then Pharaoh sent and called for Joseph, and they hurriedly brought him out of the dungeon. Now that dungeon one was like, oh, hang on, what is going on? Then I started looking up. The captain of the guard is basically the head of the protector of Pharaoh. Right? So he is like Pharaoh has royal bodyguards, and the head of the protector is the captain of the guard. He has to live very close to Pharaoh on the grounds. And then at the same time, if there's ever anybody that Pharaoh's like, you're moving kind of shady, I don't trust you. Let me keep you somewhere safe where someone can keep an eye on you and you can't be a threat whilst I go and research about you. They put that person under the care of the captain of the guard. Therefore, the house of the captain of the guard had to have somewhere safe, secure, where people couldn't run away from, but couldn't also be mistreated too much either. So it was something like this. This is the top, and this is the bottom, the basement / dungeons. So the whole time we all saw that Joseph was put in prison, and we all got very excited and then stopped looking at the description. But the actual Bible tells us that the whole time, this whole time, my whole life that I've been reading this story and being like, God, I'm kind of giving you side eye. How can you say you love this guy and then you let him stay in the prison? This whole time, Joseph never went anywhere. All he did was move from upstairs to downstairs. He went from upstairs to the basement. That's all. And he remained in close trust of the captain of the guard. He remained in close trust of Potiphar because Potiphar put him in charge of very royal prisoners. You know, those kind of prisoners that you're like, I better treat you well because tomorrow you might be restored to your position, and then, you'll be in a position where you could actually ask for me to be killed. Yes, Potiphar put Joseph in charge of those people, but Joseph never went anywhere. All that happened was Joseph went from upstairs. And also, okay, well, as a slave, he could go around, he could leave his master's house, maybe go shopping, go and do things. But when you are technically in those dungeons, you can't leave the compound. So Joseph did not go to prison as we thought. My mind was blown. And I was like, wait, God, what? And then God went like, okay, and also whilst you're on it, compare Joseph's life before he got to Egypt and now, and you will understand what I was doing. So Joseph's life before was, yes, we all know he had a coat of many colors, but actually his family was a little bit full of strife because his mother had three sister wives, one proper one and two side chicks, right? And they were squabbling and they had all of these things. And the mother was now dead. So Joseph was actually in a position where he had all these brothers who obviously did not like him. And God must have been like, okay, first of all, I need to get this guy out of here and get him somewhere safe. But I also need to get him used to serious wealth, serious, proper wealth. And you know how these Egyptians are with gold. I mean, we've all seen the photos, like they've got their full-on jewelry and all these like massive gold collars and stuff. Now, if God is going to put you in a position where you're going to rule, God is always going to get you used to that. So God first put Joseph in the household of Potiphar so that, and then it says that Joseph was running all of, sorry, it says that sorry, I forgot that I had that screen running. Anyway, God first put Joseph in the house of Potiphar, and it says that Joseph was running all of Potiphar's house, right? Which means that Joseph then got used to a wealth organization, and then, as if that wasn't close enough, God got him even closer to people in positions of power. Right, so God got Joseph closer by getting in the cupbearer and the baker. And the whole time, Joseph was literally next door to the palace. This is not the first time God's doing it. God did the same, or this is not the only time God did that. God got Moses right under Pharaoh's nose to learn how to rule before he made him a deliverer, right? God also got David from following sheep into Saul's palace to get him used to how to rule before he made him a ruler. So God was like, so when you say that Joseph struggled, what do you mean? And I was like, I kind of thought, I didn't know. So Joseph was never in any prison like you or I think or thought. That blew my mind today. And that is what I had to jump on here and do a video and share. Wow. Yes, yes, yes. You know what? You're not going to believe me. So go and read your Bible again and underline everywhere it says captain of the guard and everywhere it says, he was in the house and blah, blah, blah. Underline it all and then come back and let me know. God bless you. Bye bye.